Hey guys, how you doing? Time for another deadly sin of chess. So this is where you come to confess your sins and gain absolution. Okay, really common one today. And this is one that intermediate and advanced players grow out of, but most beginners are very much guilty of. And it's the auto trade. Okay, so what do I mean? It means that you are unable or unwilling or just find it really uncomfortable when there's tension on the board. So tension means that there's pieces that could capture each other and you just want to resolve that. You want to simplify it because you can't handle it. Okay, and so what you end up doing, and I'm really speaking to beginners now, particularly people under 1,000, is automatically trading off in every situation. So I'm going to share a game just now that I played this morning. So I'm deep into Suckville, right? I've got a blooming season ticket to Suckville. I've been playing Blitz, and I think I need to stop it as well, guys. I think this, I'm practicing playing crap, right? And it's annoying me. So, I mean, yeah, I've been 1450, 1490 in the past at Blitz, and I'm now down like, it was just 1250 odd, and it's just annoying. So, you know, you just have to remember the little rhyme: Blitz gets on my tits, right? You're just practicing playing bad chess unless you can play really well at Blitz. Now, this isn't a bad game. This is not a bad game. We both played in the 80s accuracy, which is kind of okay, but let me take you through it. So my opponent's a little bit higher rated. It's from India's rated 1278, okay? And we're particularly going to focus in this game on those positions where there's the opportunity of a trade and whether or not it benefits each side, okay? And this is super common. You could almost take any chess game and do this, right? But here we go. We'll go through this. So we've got e4, e5. And we've got the wayward queen attack. Happy days, right? Obviously, you've got to tread carefully. The big blunder is g6 here, because that loses the rook to queen takes e5 check. And yeah, you've just got to be super careful and protect the pawn, right? f6 isn't possible because it puts you in check. d6 isn't ideal because it blocks in the dark squared bishop. So the best move here is knight c6, defending the pawn, and we're good. Then Laughing Boy here brings out his bishop. This is classic wayward queen stuff. So he's targeting queen takes f7 checkmate. And we do not want that, do we, my love? No, we don't. So now g6 is playable, now that the knight defendeth the pawn. And the queen can't take the pawn, so the queen's going to drop back to f3 and just switch her angle and try and checkmate me now from here. And we are not having that. So, queen to f6. Now, case in point, number one. The queens are looking at each other. This is what we call tension. Right? There is tension on the board. I could take white's queen, or white could take my queen. However, if I were to take white's queen, what's white going to do? He's going to play knight takes f3. And so I've used a move, disappearing white's queen. White makes a move to disappear my queen, but at the same time gets his knight developed into the game. So who's better off? White. Okay? Same deal this way round, right? If he takes my queen, right, he's used his turn. So this is move 4. Let's say on move 5, he wants to take my queen, okay? Which is indeed what he does. So snapshot here, right? This is the end of move 4. Okay, end of move 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. We both have 2 pieces developed into the board. I've got 2 pawns moved, right? Because he's moved his queen twice basically. So I've used that extra move to move g6, which isn't the end of the world. I could always fianchetto my bishop, blah blah blah. Okay, now. So he's got 2 pieces in the board, I've got 2 pieces in the board. Queen takes queen. Seems kind of natural, right? We don't want tension between queens, do we? No. But look now. And look, what's white got? 1. Black's got 2. Black is controlling this and this and this and this and this and this and that and the other one, right? Black is controlling a whole bunch of squares in the middle of the board, right? Look at all these squares. Look at all the squares I control, right? Not that one, that. Look, these knights are now controlling all those squares. This bishop, not brilliant, is it? You know, I mean, it's all right. But white is now already on the back foot. Do you see how that works out? Okay, play on. Knight f3. Perfectly good normal developing move, right? It's attacking that pawn, it's defended. Okay, can't go there. But he's now getting ready to castle. Nothing wrong with this picture. But he's failed to defend a pawn. This is another problem that my opponent plays in this game, is he's thinking only about his own forward motion and forgets to defend. But anyway, that's another sin for another day. All right, so anyway, so I take the pawn, thank you very much indeed, and he decides to kick my knight. Okay, I retreat to d6. Now I'm looking at the bish. I'm a look at the bishop. Now, white here should be thinking, okay, the knight is looking at, now this isn't tension, right, but I'm attacking the bishop. Okay, so I have the opportunity here to trade my knight for a bishop. And with an open board, right, we've got no pawns that have locked horns in the middle of the board, right? So all the pawns can theoretically move, right? The only pawns really that can't move are these guys that have got knights in front of them. But the knights aren't going to stay there. The horses are going to run around, okay? And the pawns can all move. So we have a mobile board. We have an open board, and we have lots of lines going on. We've got lots of space. And this makes life very good for bishops. And makes knights relatively slightly less strong. But the bishops are strong on an open board. Plus, if I take this bishop, what's white going to do? Well, he's going to recapture with the d-pawn. Which way is he going to recapture? He's going to recapture away from the centre. Okay? He's going to open up the d-file a bit. He's going to double his pawns on the c-file. Right? Is this good for white? No, my love, it is not. Okay? So he comes out, he develops a piece, right? And I go, well, I'll have the bishop, thank you very much. Okay? And he recaptures. So now, yeah, he's slightly up in development, right? Because I've just disappeared my own knight and disappeared his bishop at the same time. He's used his move to develop instead of thinking about, actually, do I want to protect my bishop? Wide open board. Yours truly has two bishops. Laughing Boy has only the one. Now, and he's got doubled pawns, and this pawn's undefended, etc., etc. So, now I do this. Okay, same again. And this is how you have to approach your game. Now, I've just developed my bishop off the back rank, so that possibly I may choose the castle. Now, something worth remembering is that there's no queens on the board now. This guy's only got one bishop left, right? So he's got no light squared bishop, and there's no queens. So, in fact, the danger level, it's like going out onto the prairie and there's no lions. All the lions are gone, right? There's no queen. The queen is off the board. Both queens are off the board. The board is less dangerous than it was. So, in fact, the idea of castling now is a lot less important and necessary than before. So here we have a situation, right? Count 1, 2, 1, 2. 2 all. We have tension between the bishops. What does white do? Obviously, he just trades off because there's tension and it's a trade, you know? And I recapture with my king. Best move, by the way, from the analysis, right? Why? Well, recapturing with a knight would have hung this pawn, for one thing. Secondly, we are now getting into the ending. So there's no queens, right? And in the ending, when there's less material on the board, it starts to become a case of space, controlling lines, and you want to activate your most powerful pieces, and the king becomes one of your most powerful pieces in the endgame. So I want to centralize my king. This is the center of the board. I want to get my king that way. Okay, so castling just doesn't make any sense at this point. So, white castles because he can. Okay, I push d6. Now he lines up his rook here. Now, for about the next 8 moves, the machine really wants me to push f6. It's like it can't get over the fact that I haven't pushed f6. It just really wants me to do that. So I develop my final bishop. Okay, there's a couple of things going on here. One is I'm attacking the knight, and if I take the knight, he has to recapture with a g-pawn, giving him an isolated h-pawn and doubled and isolated f-pawns, which is going to be hard to defend in the ending. I'm also, remember, a pawn up at this point in time, because he's just been very lax with his defense. Okay, the other benefit of that move is removing the bishop from this square means that my rooks are now connected, which means the back rank is now double patrolled, and each rook has got the back of the other rook. Happy days. Knight retreats because now white decides, actually, I'm not going to allow every possible exchange that there ever is. I come in with my knight. Computer wants me to push f6, but I'm not a computer. I'm targeting c2 and I want to fork his rooks, right? Just pressure. I want to create a problem for my opponent if I can on every turn. He brings his knight out to a3. It's a typical move to defend the forked square. So I drop my bishop back to add another attacker to there. So I could, for example, take the pawn for free. If knight takes, he loses another exchange as well. So he pushes his pawn forwards. And now I go in with the fork. So this forces an exchange of knights. Is this in my favour? Yes, it is. Why is it in my favour? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's in my favour because I'm up in material. I have an extra pawn. I've got all my pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got all my pawns. This guy has only got 7 pawns. What's more, these two here are doubled, right? So it's going to be hard to, for example, this B pawn here can't defend that one and that one. It can only defend one of them at a time. So if it moves forward to B3, then A defends B, B defends C, but C3 is undefended, right? It's just going to be a problem. So I trade, and it forces the knight to take, and I take back. Right, happy days. Nice wide open board. I've got a bishop, high speed, you know, interstellar piece, and he's got an old warhorse. Right, it's going to be slow. He attacks my bishop. Not sure why. I just retreat, okay? Think the computer wanted me to come like here. I'm not sure. Anyway, so he annoys my bishop, okay? Now, at least this pawn is actually defended. So that's not too bad for him. And again, I just drop back down here. And he pushes a pawn, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the computer's going, F6, why you not play F6, huh? Why you not play F6? I've centralised my rooks, just drop back, you know. And quite honestly, guys, from this point in time, this is pretty much a walk-in, right? Look, all my pawns are on their natural home files. Dickhead here decides to attack my pawn, but I just move and harass the knight, and now the knight's got to go back. So where's it going to go? It's got to go there or there, right? Goes there, it gets took, goes there, it gets took, goes there, it's kind of stuck in the wrong corner. So he comes here. Now, important question. Do I want to trade my bishop for this knight? And to be honest, I think yes and no are both valid. On one hand, I'm up a pawn. And I've got all my pawns on adjacent files, which means they can build chains and defend each other, particularly if I play f6 at some point, which would make Stockfish very happy indeed. On the other hand, it's still quite a wide open board, blah, blah. You know, there's that's undefended, both on light squares. These guys here are pretty safe. That's defended currently, and so's that. So I decide to trade off here, because he's either got to capture now with a rook, which means I could maybe play f5 and with tempo and annoy the rook, drive it back, or he recaptures with the pawn, in which case he gets an isolated pawn on the e-file, and he captures with the pawn, which I don't think was necessarily the right move, but at least it stops ideas of f5. Okay, well, does it? No. So I push f5 anyway. Why? I'm up a pawn. I'm up a pawn. I've got a centralized king, right? I'm only 2 jumps away from the center of the board, whereas he's 1, 2, 3. So my king is more centralized. Happy days, and I'm quite happy to open the G file, right? My G pawn has now become an F pawn, and we've opened up the G file. What's on the G file? His Majesty, the White King. And rook now comes over to attack my pawn. Rook f8 defends. And really, guys, from this point in time, it's just a formality. I mean, it goes on for 74 moves, the game. And this is interesting. So I'm using my rooks now. So this rook's defending here, but it wants to come over here or something like that, or even to here to defend pawns. But my rooks actually have a very easy time now. You see this rook now to f6 defends this rook defends this, and I've got quite a solid position. He pushes a pawn. I double up. Right? Simple stuff, right? There's one open file on the board. I've stuck both of my rooks on it. Right? I want to come after this pawn. This pawn's actually pinned. It cannot take there and it cannot take there. Okay? He pushes his rook for some reason. I push my pawn. Okay? He can't take because it gets taken himself. Pawn can't take because it's pinned. Okay? So 1, 2, 3 attackers and only 1 defender. So what do? Well, he adds a second defender. Pointless, doesn't make any difference. Takes, and he decides to trade off his rook. Why? Because he's not very clever. No, he might be exceedingly clever, I don't know, but he's just not playing very well in this game. So I take with check, also forking this pawn, but I also want to drop back and protect Harry as well, because I like Harry, he's my friend. I drop back. The computer wanted me to take here, but then I'm giving up this one, and actually, White's got quite good control over these light squares, and I don't know. I just didn't fancy letting him in here. And then we mess about a bit, so King G4, best move here. Now attacking the rook, pawn's defended. Rook comes back, blah, blah, blah. And here he declines the trade of rooks. Good move. He did the right thing. If he'd have traded rooks here, he's basically losing, because I've got 2 passed pawns, right? But we shall see that those 2 passed pawns do come in handy. Check, move, king here, move, blah. Now, key moment. Black has 2 passed pawns. What is a passed pawn? It's a pawn that can enjoy free progress up the board, obstructed by any other pawn. So if your opponent has any pawns on the same file or an adjacent file that could capture this pawn, right, any point, then it's not a passed pawn. So if he had a D pawn on here or here, for example, it's not a passed pawn, but he don't. So this is a passed pawn, this is a passed pawn. So now I decide to simplify. Okay, I skewer the king, forcing not only to trade off the rooks, because this is in my interests. Why? I'm 2 pawns up, yeah, and they are both passed pawns as well. Plus, I've now forced his king back away from the centre of the board. And now it's just a case of shuffling both my pawns up the board, defended by my king, right? And there's nothing he can do. So you can have that one. You can have that one for free, yeah? And I get a queen gone to win the game, okay? So hopefully this is useful for you. Just one simple thing to remember. If you are in the habit of automatically trading anytime there is tension between pieces, right? You know what to do. Cut that shit out. Stop it. Stop it. Don't do it. Okay, that's it. There you go. That's today's Sin for Sunday. The Sin sermon on this Sunday. I don't know what it's like where you are. It's kind of bright here. It's rained overnight, but all good. All good. Hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's useful for you. Stop it. If you do it, stop it. Okay? Think about your exchanges. Think about cui bono. Who benefits? Okay? Who benefits from the exchange? Figure it out. Calculate it. a lot of these things are not too complicated with these simple, in this game we've had like, do I trade A for B or not? Right? We're not talking about complex sequences of exchanges, just simple things. Get into the habit. Picture what will this scenario be like if your opponent initiates the exchange and you recapture. Picture what the scenario will be like if you initiate the exchange and they recapture, right? And just figure out what is best. It's not difficult. Get into the habit of doing it and you'll improve. Okay, thanks for watching everyone. Please subscribe to Chess Boot Camp if you haven't subscribed. And I'll see you soon.